Elias Morgan had lived on the edge of the Arizona desert long enough to learn that silence could speak louder than any gunshot. And on the morning everything changed, the silence felt wrong, so wrong it made him pause halfway through hitching his mule. For a man who had survived war, drought, and loneliness, it took a lot to unsettle him. But that day, the wind didn't move, the birds didn't call, and even the dust seemed to hold its breath, as if the land itself were bracing for something. Elias squinted toward the horizon where the desert met the sky in a trembling line of heat. Nothing. And yet everything in his bones whispered, "Watch yourself, son." He didn't know it yet, but at that very moment, a massive Apache patrol, nearly 50 riders strong, was making its way toward his home. And they were coming because of something he had done quietly, humbly, without bragging, months before. Something he never thought anyone had noticed. Elias wasn't the kind of man people noticed anyway. At 43, he moved through life like a tall shadow, kind eyes, weathered hands, a heart that had been bruised but not broken. He'd come west years ago trying to outrun memories of a life he didn't talk about, a childhood shaped by loss, a marriage that ended with a headstone, a war that left him with scars no one saw but everyone felt. The ranch he built from nothing was his refuge, a place where he could fix fences, raise cattle, and keep his loneliness tucked between chores. Most days were the same: wake before dawn, tend the animals, patch something that didn't need patching just to stay busy. But months ago, Eddie had an encounter he kept replaying in quiet moments. One he assumed would be forgotten by everyone except him. It had been a hot afternoon in late summer when he first saw the two Apache girls. They were young, maybe 11 and 14, struggling to lead an injured horse along the dry creek bed behind his property. The older girl limped badly, and the younger one trembled like she might faint. Sweat streaked their faces, and fear lived in their eyes. Elias approached slow, hands raised, no sudden moves. He knew better than to frighten children in the desert. They didn't speak English, and he didn't speak Apache, but fear and pain had a language of their own. He pointed to the girl's ankle, then to his house. She shook her head violently, refusing. The younger one nearly cried. They were terrified, of him, of the unknown, of being caught where they shouldn't be. So instead of insisting, Elias did something simple: he knelt. Lowered himself in the dust until his eyes were level with theirs. He gently took a handkerchief from his pocket, a blue one worn soft by years of use, and placed it on the ground between them. Then he stepped back, palms open. Slowly, cautiously, the older girl picked it up. Elias gave a small smile, then pointed again to her ankle and began wrapping it. After a long moment, she nodded. Didn't they take them to his house? Didn't they bring them inside? Instead, he patched them up right there under the shade of a mesquite tree. He gave them water, fixed their horse's bridle, and made sure the older girl could hobble well enough to continue. When they left, they bowed slightly, not with fear, but gratitude, and disappeared across the plains like ghosts made of dust and sun. Elias thought about those girls now and then, wondering if they were all right. He never imagined that they would return to him like a storm rolling over the desert. And on that strange, silent morning, the storm finally arrived. Elias was stacking firewood behind the house when he heard it, a distant rumble, like thunder but steadier. He stood still, listening. The sound grew louder, multiplied, until the ground under his feet trembled. Horses. Many horses. A sane man might have run for his rifle, but Elias didn't move. Something deep inside him, instinct or faith, told him this wasn't an attack. Still, he braced himself as the first riders appeared over the ridge, dark silhouettes against the rising sun. Then more. And more. A wave of Apaches, warriors dressed in desert leather, riding swift and silent, surrounded his home in a single sweeping motion, precise as a hawk closing its wings. They didn't shout. They didn't threaten. They simply encircled his property with a presence so powerful it stole his breath. At the front rode an older man with stern eyes and silver-streaked braids. His posture radiated authority, and the others deferred to him without question. This was a leader, a chief. And he had come deliberately. Elias swallowed hard. He didn't know what favor they'd done, or why a small act months ago could summon an entire patrol to his home. The chief dismounted and approached on foot, stopping a few paces away. His gaze held no anger, no suspicion, only a depth Elias couldn't read. You are Elias Morgan, the chief said in clear, steady English. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir, Elias replied, voice low. The chief paused, scanning the ranch as though measuring the life of the man before him. Then he turned toward the riders, lifted his hand, and two young figures stepped forward. The girls. The same ones Elias had helped under the mesquite 3 months ago. Only now, they were dressed in tribal garments, carrying themselves with the quiet dignity of youth who belonged to a people both proud and ancient. The younger girl smiled shyly. The older one, now fully healed, held the blue handkerchief in her hands, the one he had left for her on the ground. Elias' chest tightened. Hadn't they known they remembered? Hadn't they known anyone knew? The chief's voice softened. My daughters. The realization struck Elias like lightning. He had helped the daughters of an Apache chief, the very men who commanded the riders now surrounding his home. They came back to us safely because of you, the chief continued. They told us everything. Elias shifted uncomfortably, not used to being the center of anything. It wasn't much, he murmured. Just a little help. The chief's eyes hardened, not with anger, but with conviction. Among our people, he said, a little help given freely is greater than a mountain of help given proudly. Elias didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to compliments. Or gratitude. Especially not from a man like this. The chief stepped closer. You did not take them into your home. You did not frighten them. You did not try to keep what was not yours to keep. You gave water, healing, and respect. A murmur rippled through the riders, approval, recognition. Elias felt heat prick his eyes. Hadn't they expected any of this? His kindness had been instinct, nothing more. We have come, the chief said, to repay your favor. Elias blinked. I don't need anything. The chief smiled faintly. We know. That is why you are worthy. Then the unexpected happened. The huge patrol dismounted as one, like a silent wave folding onto the shore. Dozens of Apache men and women approached his land. Some carried tools, others baskets, others blankets and supplies. Before Elias could protest, they spread out across his property in organized groups. One group repaired his sagging corral. Another replaced broken boards on his barn. Another cleared the irrigation ditch they'd been putting off fixing for months. A group of women brought preserved food, beans, corn, dried meat, and stacked it neatly by his door. And several men brought him a gift so unbelievable he had to blink to make sure he wasn't imagining it, a healthy, strong, beautifully groomed Mustang. The chief stood beside him as all this unfolded. My daughters told me, he said quietly, that you have lived alone a long time. That your heart carries many sorrows. Elias stared at the ground. The desert had a way of exposing a man's loneliness. This patrol, the chief added, is not here only to repay a debt. It is here to show you that you do not walk the world alone. The words hit Elias harder than any blow. He swallowed past the lump in his throat. Thank you, he whispered, voice cracking. The chief placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture rare and meaningful. You showed kindness when no one watched, he said. You acted as a man of honor without expecting return. Such men are rare. The older daughter stepped forward, holding the blue handkerchief, now washed and embroidered with delicate red thread. She placed it in Elias' hand, closing his fingers around it. The younger girl hugged his arm shyly. Elias felt tears he hadn't shed in years slip down his cheeks. He had spent so much of his life believing that his small gestures didn't matter, that the world was too big, too broken, too indifferent to notice one man's quiet kindness. But here, on this sun-baked patch of desert, surrounded by people he once thought would never know his name, he realized how wrong he had been. The Apache patrol worked for hours, turning his lonely ranch into a place of strength again. When they finished, the chief raised his hand, and the riders mounted up. Before leaving, the chief looked back. If ever you need us, he said, send this. He handed Elias a small woven charm, a symbol of friendship, recognition, trust. We will come. Then, with a thunder of hooves and a cloud of dust, the great Apache patrol rode off into the golden light of late afternoon, leaving Elias standing among repaired fences, restocked supplies, and a heart that felt fuller than it had in decades. As the dust settled and silence crept in again, Elias stood alone on his porch, the embroidered handkerchief held gently in his hands. He realized something profound, something that made his breath catch in his throat. His small act of kindness had traveled farther than he ever imagined. It had crossed cultures, bridged fear, healed wounds, and returned to him multiplied in ways he could never have predicted. It proved that compassion, even the quiet kind done under a mesquite tree with no audience, could ripple outward like water in a desert, reaching hearts he never knew were watching. That night, as the stars emerged one by one over the Arizona sky, Elias sat on the porch with the Mustang grazing nearby, the charm hanging from his neck, and the handkerchief resting on his knee. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. For the first time in years, he believed that goodness, no matter how small, mattered. And for the first time in years, he felt hope settle warm and steady in his chest. In the quiet desert night, Elias Morgan whispered a promise to himself, to the stars, to the world. I'll keep doing good, even when no one's watching. Because now he knew the truth. Kindness always returns. Often in ways more powerful and beautiful than we ever expect.